Welcome to How to Beat the Difference with your hosts, Johanna and Paul. A podcast for the career you want, or maybe just that push you need. If you want to know what your dream career looks like, join us to get inspiration from industry experts that will make that dream career a reality.
Hello, you're very welcome along to How to Beat the Difference with your hosts, Paul Linsky and
Johanna Molina.
How are you doing, Johanna?
Very good, very good. What about you? What's new?
Not much. I have a trip planned, and it's my first trip for a good while now. But I'm going to Barcelona. I can't do the Catalan accent.
Me neither.
I'm going to see Barcelona play. I jokingly said to my brother last year, I'll take you to see Messi, wherever he is. Messi didn't work because, Messi is the greatest footballer probably of all time. So I wanted to see him again, but my brother's never seen him before he retires. He moved to Paris in that time. So we were like, will we go to Paris? And then we're like, let's just go to Barcelona. So we're going to see Barcelona play. So it should be fun.
Yes, well, I wish you all the best. Sounds like a really, really cool plan. And you are such an amazing brother.
Oh, I know. he's going to be 30. It's a big one, you know? So he wasn't going to have a party. He doesn't live in Dublin where I'm living. He lives in the north of Ireland. So I was like, why not?
What's his name?
His name is Dermot.
Dermot, so happy birthday.
Very good. You're very sweet. Amazing. Okay, Johanna, I was extremely excited about this guest. We're talking about it for weeks before we actually finally met him. So please give us the introduction.
Absolutely. So today we have Jaime Bermúdez. Jaime has a law degree from Universidad Los Andes and a PhD in Political Science from Oxford University, specializing in public opinion. He was the Chief Communication Advisor to the Presidency of Colombia, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador of Colombia and Argentina, amongst other diplomatic roles in the last 20 years. Jaime has had a well-established communication and public affairs career, as well as a crisis management for companies, multinationals, and public entities. After his diplomatic career, Jaime was appointed president of Lazard Investment Bank in Colombia. He is also board member for multiple international organizations and the author of 2 books that we'll discuss in this podcast. We are also going to be talking about what is a diplomatic career like and his take on the current war in Ukraine. Wonderful. So, Jaime, it is a real pleasure to have you here with us today. Please first tell us, whereabouts in the world are you?
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for the invitation. I'm based in Bogota, Colombia.
Wonderful, Jaime. We would love to know, why don't you take us through your journey? What is your background?
Okay, I studied law at the Universidad Los Andes in Bogota, Colombia. Then I worked for a while for the government in a quite short period of time, a year and a half or so. And then I went to England, to the UK for a PhD at Oxford. Then I went back to Colombia. I joined a firm devoted to communication strategies, and I joined as a partner. And after that, I went back to the government. Well, in the meantime, I worked as an advisor of a presidential candidate in Colombia who became a president himself. So when he got elected, I joined the president's office as communications advisor. Then I was appointed as ambassador to Argentina. And after that, I was appointed as foreign secretary of Minister of Foreign Affairs in Colombia. After that, I was invited to join an investment bank. It was an investment bank with offices in Latin America, and then was bought by a bank in New York, which is called Lazard. And I spent, I've been with Lazard for the last 12 years as chairman, senior advisor in Colombia. And I've been working with some boards. I'm a board member of different companies. And also, I devote some time to pro bono activities. I'm a member of the board of trustees of Universidad Los Andes and a couple of foundations devoted to leadership and peace projects in Colombia. Besides that, I have two kids. One is actually my daughter, my eldest. She's now in France for 6 months with the school in a very small town in south of France, having lots of fun, but at the same time living a very, easygoing, basic life. She's so happy. And my other son is with me here in Bogota, trying to sort out the difficult years of school. So that's basically my professional life and obviously part of my family.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing, Jaime. And I'd love to know, with this impressive career, how was Jaime as a child? Did you always dream about working in the government and the career you currently have?
I forgot to mention that I've published a couple of books. One of those was actually recently published by the end of last year. And I mention it because I didn't expect in my childhood to become a writer, but I'm enjoying it very much. And going back to your question, I would say, no, I was, an ordinary child with ordinary ambitions. I never thought of becoming a minister, a politician, or whatever it is. In fact, during at least the first 14, 15 years of my life, I wanted to become a person devoted to animals, to agribusiness and family business related to that. Then I thought I should go for business administration. Then I thought I should go for engineering. So I started industrial engineering in Bogota, but I spent just 1 year and left. Because when I was at the university, I also was having a chance to attend different seminars and lectures. For example, the legacy of the Greek culture, a fascinating lecture given by a very, very knowledgeable professor. And I loved it. And I used to love history, philosophy, political science, and the like. So, no, in fact, I would say I've been a dilettante my entire life, and I'm still a very dilettante guy. I think I used to think that life normally lasts for 2 years. What I mean by that is that you need to, make a move after 2 years. That's not the case anymore because I'm becoming older. And the older you get, the life framework is longer at the same time. But generally speaking, I really like changes. I really like different things. If I have a chance to be born again, I would love to live during the Renaissance in Italy, for example, just to have the chance to learn about, different things, different cultures, art, politics, science, money, trade, and so on. Anyhow.
That's amazing. And you've got, as your background, as was like looking through your background and doing a bit of research, you've had enough careers for a lot of people. It's been really amazing. But the team that kind of stuck through the whole thing was communication. So do you still enjoy the communication aspect, and how did you become a specialist?
Well, as I mentioned before, I went to, that's a funny story. When I wanted to go abroad for, doing a postgrad somewhere, I thought I should go for European history because I used to read a lot of European history. I don't know why, to be honest, but I wanted to. So I looked up at the different universities in the world, English-speaking universities with history faculties, and I found 5. But then I came across to 2 different historians, one Venezuelan and one Colombian, very knowledgeable by then. And they both suggested I should contact an English man historian named Malcolm Dees, expert in Colombian history. So I had the chance to visit him, to talk to him. And he said, you shouldn't go to European history at Oxford. They will kill you. You don't have a historian background. So you better go for Latin American studies. And I said, I wouldn't like to do that. And he said, well, let's make a deal. You can enter to the Latin American Center at Oxford, and then you decide whatever you feel like doing. So we did so. And I ended up doing 6 months later a PhD on public opinion, mass media, and communications. So the reason why I became close to communication strategies was precisely because of my PhD. So I wanted to work on that. And it has also very much to do with the fact that I was very interested in collective behavior, in social behavior, and why people do, why public opinion, why social groups behave or react in certain ways or certain manners. All related to philosophy and sociology and social psychology, so to speak. So that was the reason why I connected with such a subject like public opinion. And then I thought that one way to apply all that knowledge that I have acquired during my PhD was precisely communication strategies. And suddenly I got to know this former governor of Antioquia, Alvaro Uribe Vélez, who went to Oxford for a sabbatical because of his personal security problems in Colombia. He was very threatened by different groups. And he spent 1 year in England, and we met. And we actually attended a couple of lectures together, and we became somehow friends. And ever since, we started thinking about his presidential campaign for 2002, which in fact ended up being his chance to become president of Colombia. So I joined, all these coincidences and situations by which I ended up working on that. And when he won the presidency, then I became his communications advisor at his office in Colombia.
That must have been amazing, and I'm big into European history as well, and I've no idea why. I just find myself
watching. Is that right? What a coincidence!
I find myself watching World War II in color for the 600th time on Netflix. But yeah, so like could you actually expand on that a little bit, because you were part of the diplomatic crisis between Ecuador and Venezuela, and could you tell us a little bit about your time in politics and how was it?
It was amazing. Remarkable. It was a huge opportunity for me personally speaking and professionally. I'm very grateful for having such a great opportunity, and obviously with the president who offered me that post and for life. It was fascinating. It was tough. It was very, very exciting, but at the same time, those were difficult times. So I became foreign secretary 3 years after Colombia have made a military operation in the borderline with Ecuador against the stronghold of Raúl Reyes, one of the key leaders of FARC. And that was a really turning point for the FARC's capability, militarily speaking, and that was a turning point for the FARC history in Colombia. But that's another story. I just wanted to, highlight the importance of the relevance of that operation, despite the fact, obviously, that it brought diplomatic difficulties with Ecuador, but also with Venezuela and some other countries in Latin America. When I joined the government, my first act actually was to protest against President Ortega from Nicaragua, who said this very day that I took oath as minister that the FARC were a significant and brave group who used to fight for the liberation of Colombians, which was totally unaccepted given the fact that we were and still are a very democratic and legitimate government and political institutions. We are a strong democracy, obviously with caveats and flaws, but we shouldn't accept that. So that was the way I actually started my own job. And those were difficult times because, yes, Chavez was in power, lots of money coming from oil and oil industry for Venezuela, and they were very influential in the region. And some other countries joined their club, by then Bolivia, Nicaragua, Ecuador. And Brazil, under the government of Lula da Silva, was also very ambivalent given the circumstances in the region. So the situation in the region was very, very difficult for us. But also, internationally speaking, we were very active in terms of free trade agreements with Europe, United States, Central America, some countries in the Asia Pacific Rim, and so on. So they were very active times, as international politics normally are. They were fascinating, and it was a great experience, no doubt.
And that is a huge wealth of experience, Jaime. Obviously, I have to ask that, given your experience, what have you made of the current situation in Ukraine, the current war?
I think we somehow are going back to the 19th century and even prior to that, because after the Second World War, I think that Europe in particular made a lot of progress, institutionally speaking. And I think that Europe has become for the world a very good example of how you can argue whether you are a rightist government or leftist government, as long as you respect the main principles of democracy, which means security for all, human rights, liberties, free press, social programs, and so on. And Europe, after the war, you would find, left, right, every color within the political spectrum, different cultures, different religions, different social interests, different political parties. But at the end, Europe consolidated democracy in a very strong manner. And it had also a very strong, significant impact on the way Europe related with the world and within itself. And they managed to create the European Union, which is still, in a difficult situation, but it's the only institution as that one that really works internationally nowadays and has worked for, decades by now. But it is intriguing how a guy like Putin decided to invade a country like Ukraine under the premises they supposedly are invading Ukraine, which, after the war was not very common by then. There's been a couple of examples, including Russia and Crimea and Georgia, but these are the Russians, not the Europeans. So anyhow, I think that the world is totally upside down by then because of that. And obviously the implications in security and in trade and the social implications of that are huge and are going to be significant. And there is still to be seen whether Russia consolidates its goals in Ukraine or not. And obviously the impact of not only the current impact of the situation, but also what other countries are going to do with a similar situation. For example, China vis-a-vis Taiwan, and whether somehow this would open the door for further reactions or countries or leaders in the world trying to do or emulate something similar, which is very scary at the same time. So this is not a good thing anyhow.
Yes, it is definitely not a good thing. And I'd like to translate this into the corporate world as well, because you are a consultant for communication, crisis management, public relations for multinational companies. What changes are there compared with your work in government? How do we translate that into the corporate world?
Well, it's pretty obvious that they are very different worlds in many aspects, but at the same time, we are all humans. So we are the same, despite the fact whatever we do. And obviously the time framework, the interests, the goals are basically different, obviously. And the capabilities for getting things done are totally different, obviously. And the risks are totally different. Just to give you a couple of examples, when you are a politician and you are in charge of a cabinet post or a leader of a country or a mayor or a minister, well, your decisions normally take a toll on millions of people. The impact is huge or could be huge. Whereas if you work for a specific company, the impact is different. It's much smaller. But I truly believe that there are many ways in which you could actually do good things or bad things for society, not being part of the government. And in fact, what I'm doing now is precisely that. I'm not working with the government anymore, but I think that there are many social issues that need to be solved. And from the private sector and private initiatives, sometimes you could actually have a stronger impact in certain aspects or deeper impact in certain regions or certain groups, social groups, and so on and so forth. So there are many ways in which you could actually contribute to society, not only coming from the private from the public sector. Anyhow, they are totally different words, but we are the same. And what I'm trying to do is to apply what I know in these different areas. And at the end, to be honest, I really care about social impact, despite the fact that these are different worlds somehow.
Yeah, and can we touch on that for a little bit? You said you went from public to private, and I know you promote education. So could you talk to us about how the differences and also like the technology you have helping people?
You mean technology in the education world?
Yeah, So you promote education, and now do you think technology has a role to play in this?
Oh yeah, huge. I mean, there's no question. We all have been affected positively and negatively by technology. But going back to Ukraine, the other day I read something interesting, which is how many users of Airbnb decided to pay to Airbnb hosts, knowing that they wouldn't go to Ukraine, just to support them and to support the difficult situation many of them were actually enduring. That was fascinating. I mean, how a social platform could actually be useful for social purposes beyond, the economic interest itself, or beyond the point of just serving some host or, users as tourists, for example. No, this was, a really effective social impact using appropriately a social platform. That was fascinating for me. that really is, a new wave to use these platforms. So anyhow, I think that obviously technology is having a strong impact on education. I would say that in Latin America, in particular in Colombia, there is a lot to be done, not only because technology is not exactly significantly widespread, socially wise. There are many regions, schools, and parts of the country that have no appropriate technology or connectivity for them to use it all the time, but also in terms of content. We need to adapt various and significant programs, subjects, seminars, conferences, for them to really grasp the knowledge who is available on the web, on the internet. And that's a huge, huge challenge for us too, as it is in many other parts of the world. But yes, for example, the university is actually, my university, Universidad Los Andes, a significant growth in continuing education because of that, because you can offer a lot of different courses and programs and seminars without any formal, program as engineering or law or biology. This is continuing education, which is a very open framework for anyone to join in several aspects and subjects. So there is a huge scope there too, but also in the ordinary course of these programs, established programs, in which you can actually have a blended system or just a virtual program, and you can improve somehow costs, although there are serious risks in terms of costs with technology. But also you can impact many other people that wouldn't reach these contents living, in the outskirts of the cities or even in the countryside or small villages, whereas with technology, you could actually improve that situation significantly. So anyhow, yes, there's a lot to be done and the opportunity is huge, but there are big challenges: costs, content, and obviously connectivity.
I cannot agree more on that. And following up the same trend, in your opinion, what are the skills required to succeed in the 21st century?
What do you mean by success?
Whatever success means to you.
Well, it seems to me that success nowadays is different than 20 years back. Success seems to me to be seen as a different thing for youngsters than it used to be 20, 30 years back. There was a time in which success was actually measured by having a good employment, good remuneration, work with a big company, big corporation somewhere, traveling around, and very much related to economic success and having a good job somewhere, someplace. I don't think that that's the case any longer. What we see in the young generations, not even the millennials, but also Generation Z, is something different. It seems to me that they really care about others more than we used to, at least my generation. They really care about environment more than we used to. They don't care about big corporations. Perhaps they are more inclined to entrepreneurship. Not all of them, obviously, and it really depends on the opportunities you have, on the vision you have, on the education you have. But I see more and more youngsters going to that. They don't really care about having their own car. They don't really like driving itself. Mobility has become a pain in somewhere in the big cities, so it's better to have a scooter or a bike, and we can actually improve the environment using a bike instead of a car, and so on and so forth. All these ideas, which are already known worldwide, I think it's a new measure of of success. So it's interesting how Larry Fink of BlackRock in his last letter mentioned that the coming unicorns in the world would be related to sustainability. All the huge startups, successful startups, would be those related to sustainability for the coming years. And that's interesting because I think that also relates to what we see in the youngsters as success or interest or sensibility for different issues. So in any case, I think, and this is a personal view, we need to defend wisdom instead of specialization. What I'm trying to say with that is that, yes, we need specialists everywhere. I mean, there's no way you can build a plane if you are not a specialist, obviously. There's no way you can have a computer if there are not specialists. There's no way you can use the internet if they weren't a specialist on the World Wide Web. But what I truly believe is that for humans to be more humans and wise and live better, we need to have perspective. And perspective is given by having the chance to compare, to learn, to read, not only what you really know, so to speak, engineering, but other things. Obviously, a very balanced way of life, but also a very balanced way of thinking, and a very balanced, or at least a very open view on how reality actually works. And I tend to believe that it's very important that engineers read literature, that lawyers do sports and love poetry, and I really think that entrepreneurs should also learn about how big companies work and what can you actually have social impact in a very poor neighborhood of your city. This kind of different approaches to different situations, because reality is like that. Reality is not specialized. We are specialized because we cannot cope with a complex reality. So that's the reason why I think we need to work more on searching for wisdom instead of specialization. But anyhow, we need a glass of wine to discuss that.
Next time we'll have a glass of wine for sure. I love that quote on wisdom instead of specialization. Really love that. Jaime, what's been the best advice you've been given?
Plenty. I wouldn't be able, if you ask me my favorite book, my favorite music, my favorite advice, I couldn't tell you just one. Lots. There is a good saying by a Spanish author that says every book has its time and its reader. I don't think there's one single piece for your entire life. In fact, we now can live 2 or 3 lives in the same lifespan. We used to live 40 years, 35 years, 2 centuries ago. Now we live 80 years. Can you imagine you studying just one single subject for your entire life? Whereas you can now study, for example, law, and then perhaps do history later on, become an historian later on in your life or whatever. I mean, you choose. 80 years is so long, such a long period of time just to be devoted to one single career, for example. And I truly believe that nowadays we can live 2, 3 different lives, so to speak. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not really very keen to, say there's one single piece of advice or one single book or one single song for your entire life. But I've been given a lot of good advices, I'm just trying to remember one for the sake of the argument. I would say don't forget to listen. Don't forget to listen. The more you listen, the more you learn.
I absolutely love that. And picking on your quote that every book has time and rhythm, and that you now have a new life as an author, which I must say, I have the book right next to me. I just need you to sign it and read it. Tell me, what is the time and rhythm of this one? Why did you write it right now? It's called ¿Por qué incumplimos la ley? Which is like, why do we not accomplish what? Why don't we comply with the law in English?
Perhaps you could, name it the other way around. Why we disobey the law.
Okay, why do we disobey the law then?
Well, you first asked me a different question, which was,
yes,
why this book now? I was right?
Why now?
There's a long answer and a short answer. The long answer, or the long story of the answer, is I used to think and read about all these subjects very long ago. And as I mentioned, I used to read a lot of philosophy, history, and I became a lawyer. But I used to teach theory of law, sociology of law, public opinion, all these somehow related matters, the social behavior, collective behavior. So I've been reading for ages now about these kind of subjects and matters. And I've been very much interested on that. But also 2 years ago, I wanted to go to Stanford for a sabbatical. And I had the plan to go with my family for some months. And I was invited as visiting fellow at Stanford at the Hoover Institution. So my plans were precisely to go to Stanford and write a book on this subject. But then the pandemic came across, and instead of Stanford, I ended up in Suachoque, a very small village nearby Bogota, where I have a very small farm. So I spent the last year and a half writing a book on why we disobey the law, hidden in Suachoque. And that was, the short answer of the book. Why the book now? Because of the pandemic somehow. Why the book now? Because I've been reading about these subjects for ages. So that's the reason why.
And then on why do we disobey the law?
You should read the book and then tell me.
To buy the book. When is in English then? When is it going to be released in English?
I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to be published in English or not. We are just beginning with the Spanish edition. And basically, I could tell you three things why we disobey the law. The first one is because the state is so weak and absent in many parts, regions of several countries, that it's very difficult for the state to have a single police for a single person that actually breaches the law. And you can see that very clearly in different countries, for example, Colombia or Argentina, or even the United States or European countries, where the law is disobeyed because there is no way the state can actually implement the law properly. And that's a huge chapter or discussion in itself. But we obey the law, we comply with the law, not only because we know there is a sanction or a punishment, or we know there is a police behind, or there is a judge behind, or there is a mayor behind. If we disobey, we normally, and societies normally obey the law because they consider that the others expect us to obey the law. And we see the others obeying the law, and that's critical. Social norms are critical in this matter. So in other words, the second reason why we disobey the law is whenever there is a contradiction between moral norms, social norms, and legal norms. If you belong to a society or a community where using guns is a respectful issue, or people actually say, this is good for you, use a gun, it's very difficult to to enforce a law that actually forbids the guns, and not mention the possibility of being killed or kill someone else. If you, for example, your friends and your family love drinking, and you are, below 18 years or 21 years, depending on the state you live in, and drinking alcohol is forbidden, but in your family, they support you drink because, you become a macho, a grown-up when you drink. It's very difficult for the state to make that law enforced. You know what I mean? Because there is a social behavior that that would actually support that attitude, that behavior. Well, and the third reason why we disobey the law is because there is a lack of legitimacy nowadays regarding the democratic institutions. Somehow there is a decay in the legitimacy of democratic systems and governments, and that is so because of many reasons that are explained in the book, but also because I think we are enduring a cultural transition in which the social norms of almost every society have been changed or are changing rapidly. And obviously that affects the way we relate to institutions and to others. So basically these are the main three reasons, but obviously there's a long discussion about this.
Fascinating. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that book in English. I've got two final questions for you, and you've been amazing with your time. They're both very different, so I'm just going to warn you in advance. But the first one is you did mention beforehand that exploring different things is very important, and you can have multiple careers over a lifetime. So in your opinion, what is your opinion on internships as part of education or curriculum?
Internships are a very good way to learn more in practice. You learn more is not only about formal issues. Well, the key thing of social interaction and human success, whatever you define human success is to understand how others behave, how others think in different environments. So if you have become a bachelor or freshman in university, if you are part of a community like a high school or community college or a college itself, life is very different as reality is beyond that. Very different. Interests are different, groups are different, interaction is different, structures are different, retribution is different, everything is different. So internships are a very good vehicle, a very good way to learn more how the real world in certain institutions or companies or corporations or institutions is really like. And that would give you another hint of how humans behave in different environments. And that's a very efficient way to learn, not only special subjects, not only to become a specialist, which is good, which is fair, which is necessary very often, but also to understand, as I said, how the others behave in different environments and how you can actually learn from that behavior in the way you interact with others. And that's the reason why, as we know, science now refers not only to IQ, but also to EQ, because the emotional coefficient is a key issue for real leaders to have, because that means that they really understand that equation, how others behave, and which are the buttons that actually make people move fastward, forward, and so on and the like.
Amazing. And then the last question, which I told you was going to be very different, but we've touched on all of these points throughout the whole conversation, whether it be communication or just mentioning Airbnb in Ukraine. And with your experience, you've been in government and you have this amazing background. What do you make of Zelensky and his leadership during the war in Ukraine, and his, I suppose, like his ability to use social media in such a positive way?
I think he's been very brave. But I think that the key question here for him, I'm just guessing, is the following one. I lead a country. I have a political mandate for doing so and an institutional obligation for doing so. But my goal shouldn't be martyrdom. And I shouldn't take my whole country to a position in which the final damage is so critical that there is no way back for normality. That's a significant dilemma, because on the other side, you would say, we cannot tolerate, we cannot accept the Russian invasion, which is true, certain, and adequate. But it's also a moral dilemma, a political dilemma. Where is the line to be crossed to negotiate certain matters, or to be totally defeated, invaded, and destroyed in a way? I mean, country-wise, socially wise, human lives wise. So I think that's I mean, that would wake me up every night, what to do with that dilemma. And obviously I don't have the answer, because the answer is only given by them, by the knowledge and the risk, the aversion of risk, or the balance by which they actually judge the situation.
Thank you very much, Jaime, for your time. What's next for you? What's your next career?
Mean by now? Next career. I don't know. I'm enjoying writing, or by now, talking about the book. Obviously, I do certain things as boards and my main activity is banker, but I'll give you a hint. It's not official, and perhaps it may not work in the future, but I'm trying to figure out how Colombia can become a serious agro business opportunity for Colombians, but also the international community in terms of food security. So I'm looking at that particular issue and trying to talk to some private businessmen and business community people to think about it, just to give you an idea. So I don't know whether that's going to work out or not. You ask me, I answer you.
Well, that's wonderful. So congratulations again, Jaime, on your book. We'll definitely stay cheering for you and these potential other endeavors, exciting endeavors. And yes, I will stay personally with this quote that I love, that you said, moving from a specialist into becoming wiser. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Johanna. Thank you, Paul. It's been wonderful. So all the best and good luck.
Amazing. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul. You take care.
And that was Jaime. What a fascinating man. Definitely next time in the next episode, we can have a glass of wine, as he suggests.
Absolutely. Yeah. God, I really enjoyed that. I said it to him afterwards because it was really interesting hearing his take on different things. That's kind of why we were all over the place, right? We were like, wait, hold on, and we were jumping back to questions, just to ask him his opinion, like especially the ongoing stuff that's happening internationally, and then also anything else. It was just fascinating hearing from him.
Exactly. What a wise man. We simply didn't want to let him go, right?
Oh no, we would have kept him for longer if he wasn't busy. We were kind of like Johanna, you messaged me during, and we're like, look, let's just stay and talk and see how long we can talk for. Brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Amazing.
Yes, me too. And I hope everyone here also has enjoyed it. And I mean, yes, just to wrap, you know that you can reach us at howtobeadifference@theinterngroup.com or on social media @theinterngroup. And see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, Johanna. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good luck. Bye-bye.